Welcome back viewers, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries and anyone with ears or other sound detection organs. Hope you enjoy. We are continuing with Chaos and Mayhem written by Lord Henry 7878. There is a link to the playlist in the doobly-doo. Chaos and Mayhem, a sexy space babes story part 40. Once Miss Pasadena fired the shot, it was absolute chaos. Neighbors brawled with neighbors. Chunky's men tried to put down the chaos, but it was useless. Those who had been conscripted bum-rushed his volunteers. Mr. Prescott kinda regretted giving his pistol to Miss Pasadena, partly because she caused this shit, but also because now he needed it.
Myolanta, meanwhile, was somewhere across town, dealing with her own problem.
She and SAC-QAM were pinned inside a Denny's. SAC-QAM, in particular, nursed a nastiest hole in her leg. Somebody had thrown a knife, and that thing had gone slow enough to punch through her flexifibra. Fuck. The Sarge growled as she squeezed the wound tight. That's losing a lot of blood. Fuck. The medical stuff had been on the autoturox, unfortunately. There wasn't any chance of small-town humans having blood substitute and sealant foam either. They were gonna have to tie it off. Myolanta looked for a piece of string. She grimaced and set to work undoing a shoelace and pulling it off the foot of a dead man. It felt sacrilegious, to say the least, but no ghosts came out of the grave to say, no. Bad, so Myolanta tied the shoelace around the Sarge's thigh, just above the wound. You gonna be able to walk on that? Normally I'd say yes, SAC-QAM groaned, but does that look like a place for injured people out there? Myolanta looked out the window. Human rioters ran through the streets, occasionally killing each other in increasingly gruesome ways. Yeah, let's stay in here. Something smashed through the window. It looked like a steel pipe smoking slightly at one end. Shit, run. Myolanta grabbed SAC-QAM's arm and slung it over her shoulder, staggering slightly under the weight of her officer. She dragged her officer out into the chaos just as the pipe bomb exploded with a smoky foof. The hate instantly became directed towards them. Baby killer. Some lady yelled. Murderer. Somebody else yelled. Rapist scum. Someone threw something. It donked off Myolanta's helmet. You ruined our family. Why won't you leave us alone? There was a gunshot. People started running as Myolanta shoved SAC-QAM into an alley. Amidst the panic, she could see a number of soldiers advancing with weapons. Shit, Myolanta breathed. What is it? SAC-QAM grumbled. We got Chunky soldiers. Or Chucks. Or Carls. Soldiers, got it. SAC-QAM and Myolanta staggered out of the alley into the building. We're safe. SAC-QAM slid down against a wall. Nope. Myolanta looked through the window. She staggered back as somebody smashed through with a crowbar. Definitely not safe. She grabbed the crowbar and wrenched it free from the man's grip. She knew that if anybody could see her hurting a man like this, she would be a pariah. You didn't hurt men, Myolanta reasoned as she swung the hooked metal tool up through the soft spot behind the man's chin. She swung so hard the hook poked out of his mouth as he was lifted off the ground. Once the man collapsed back to the floor, Myolanta tried wrenching the tool free. No luck, it was stuck in there good. Myolanta looked down at the corpse. The whole night, she had been doing the one thing she knew you never ever did. And for what? Sure, Dick was great, but in the end, all this system had was a few gas giants that could have been any other gas giants. Some nobles had decided they wanted a planet full of dongs, and here she and the crew were, fighting and dying for it.
Back in the present, a tear slid down Myolanta's face behind her helmet.
She didn't dare make a sound or open her mouth. Nobody could see her crying. This planet was a haven for the worst of the Empire. Coincidentally, those in charge. Here, they could get away with anything they wanted. People like Agent Dagda. People like that. Myolanta thought back to the aftermath of that incident.
Myolanta staggered out of the burning house, frog marching the insurgent leader with a piece of glass to his throat.
What was his name? Chucky, Chunky, Chicken, Chucklefuck? She couldn't remember anymore. Demolishing the population of a small town would do that to you? Myolanta's heart sank. The surviving townspeople were approaching her. Just ordinary people, injured and carrying weapons and splattered in gore, mostly red with a hint of blue here and there. I know what he's been doing to you, Myolanta stammered as she dragged the injured terrorist. None of this was supposed to happen. I know, said a bald man in a dripping red shirt. Chunky glared at the man. We'll be placing this man under arrest, Myolanta said, growing a little more confident. These people were far more reasonable than the craziness of last night. She didn't blame anybody. Fear and loss and anger and terror and pain could drive anybody to do horrible things. Take him, somebody said. We don't want him. Why, you, Chunky spluttered. I'll have you all shot, my men. Your men are conscripts. Slaves, the bald man said calmly, smashing the butt of his little rock thrower into Chunky's teeth. Who were looking for the first opportunity to leave you and come home? As Chunky spat out teeth, Myolanta dragged him off and into the arms of waiting interior agents. So they finally saw fit to send help, she reflected bitterly. She went for the medical transport when an agent called her name. Private Myolanta. Empress, why? Myolanta trudged into another transport, flopping down, unable to stand any longer. Pardon, but could I get medical attention first? She couldn't tell what blood was hers and what was her squadmates. No, the interior agent's voice was sharp. You will listen to what I have to say, understood? Myolanta just nodded woozily. In the aftermath of the events in this village, as the sole survivor, you will be investigated for war crimes as well as the death of your squadmates and commanding officer. Sergeant Sack QAM died saving my life. Myolanta snapped. The Sarge had grabbed a terrorist with a knife, then a down power line in the other. They'd both fried. And now insubordination, the agent grumbled. There is, however, another option. Great, Myolanta didn't care. Baron Stamacios in Maryland is putting together a number of teams for off-the-books missions against the growing insurgency in the region. You do this, and maybe we don't try you for war crimes.
In the information center in the back of the mobile command unit, 2 other interior agents watched helmet and drone footage and pondered.
Perhaps we do allow the news to report this, one said, but we spin it positively. Less horrific shit show where everybody loses, more heroic Marines give their life to protect a small town from insurgents. That could work. The other agent said. But we have to lower the death count severely. She watched the footage as the drone flew overhead. It looked like half the town's bodies littered the ruined streets. The Marines give their lives, obviously, but, the agent pondered some more. She checked how many pictures they had of individual bodies from the town. 13 dead. Release the pictures of the bodies, give them some kind of send-off, may they find peace in the forest of eternal bounty, blah blah blah, tug at the heartstrings. That works. The first censor typed up a few headlines. Marine Squad gives lives to protect human town. Sounds ambiguous enough that it's technically the truth. I say run it.
In the present once again, Myolanta realized that someday Dada was just gonna dump her like all those other girls.
One mistake, and Myolanta was on trial for false charges. If Myolanta wanted to get out of this alive, Dagda had to die. Dagda and this whole rotten weaver bug web she was caught in. Possibly up all the way to the main weaver himself, the Baron. As Myolanta sat there, disturbed, in the transport, the wheels turned in her head. She knew the main names that Dagda reported to. She could go through their offices for the next set of targets and pull things together. She'd learned a few things in her time in this little death squad. A few things about spycraft. She could pull together a good conspiracy as well as the next girl. Better, probably. It was all about assets and who you knew. She could coerce, manipulate, or otherwise influence all the little pieces into place.
A few weeks later, Agent Dada was hard at work in her office.
While she was still technically a member of the Interior, she answered to somebody else. Speaking of, she poked her head out of her office to make sure nobody saw her and slid down the hall. Once she came to the right door, she knocked 3 times. "Come in, Agent Dagda," said a voice. "Handle a Belia," she said coolly. Jem Belia was Dagda's immediate superior. "I need the files on the project in Waldorf. There's a possibility some humans may have found out about it." Ever since the incident with the train, they had refused to say Purity Control, instead referring to it as the project. Even after sweeping for bugs, you never knew what a passing set of ears could hear by mistake. Of course. Belia got on her Omnipad and cleared Dagda to view the files. "Write up the situation report, and I'll keep you in the loop." Her pad started ringing. "Hold on," Belia said. "I need to take this. It's my superiors." All Dagda needed to know. Once she left the room, Belia put the device to her ear. "Director." With a bang, a small explosive charge inside the Omnipad went off, shattering the side of Jem Belia's skull, liquefying her brain and snapping her head to the side hard enough to break her neck for good measure. It even blew her hand off. "Oh shit!" Agent Dagda ran back in. "Handle a Belia? We need a medic. Or maybe a coroner." End of chapter. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss any episode and do all the other YouTube stuff, visit and support the author, all the relevant links are in the doobly-doo, and comment your opinions, good or bad. And I'll see you next time. And as usual, have a wonderful day.